2026 finally looked like the year that the Southern California housing market would make a comeback. The early real estate market data was looking good. Mortgage rates were trending down. They touched just below 6%. Buyers were showing up. Sellers are getting confident again. And then a literal bomb was dropped and everything changed. Is it going to be another loser year for housing, or are we about to claw it all back? We're going to cover that in this video, and stick around to the very end to see which California housing market is bucking every trend thanks to big AI money. It's time for the Southern California Housing Market Report. Diving into the Southern California data for May's going all the way back to 2018. And if you remember, we completely rebuilt the way we share this data, and it's much more informative and much more interactive. Make sure you subscribe to our newsletter so you can get a copy of this and play with the numbers. Let's bring in the 30-year mortgage rate. Nothing crazy here other than when mortgage interest rates are low, for example, below 3% like we had in 2021, we can see that pending sales go way up. A lot of people write offers and buy properties. And then when mortgage interest rates go up, they tend to buy fewer properties. That's exactly what we're seeing here. And even though mortgage interest rates are down from their peak in 2024, we're still seeing that the number of properties going under contract, that's skimming along the bottom. Kind of like when we were skipping rocks with my sons up in Big Bear Lake recently, took a little family getaway, just skipping along. And we were theoretically going to see things go up this year. It started out to be a good spring buying, selling season, and early data we were looking at. Then a bomb was dropped. Things have changed. And hopefully now, as we're shooting this in the end of June, we're going to get things back on track. And maybe we'll reclaim some of the sales that it looks like we lost for this year. And we're seeing that same sentiment in sellers. That's why we had a drop in new listings. When you look at year over year new listings down about 16%, things changed as the market changed. Sellers became less confident putting their property on the market, especially when they saw interest rates go back up. They weren't supposed to be around 6.4 in May. They were supposed to be lower based on where things were trending early in the year. So let's compare to the peak of pending sales. So back when mortgage interest rates were just under 3%, we've seen a drop of 41% in the number of properties going under contract. Not necessarily fair to compare that because that was a crazy peak we had back then. We can look at pre-COVID years. So compared to 2019, we're down about 34%. Compared to 2018, we're down about 34%. So more normal years pre-COVID, we're still off from those numbers, not seeing as many properties going under contract and not seeing as many properties sell. What are we seeing in Los Angeles? We're seeing those pending sales. It's skipping along that bottom there. We're down slightly year over year. And then same thing with new listings. We had that peak last year in new listings. This year, we see a drop. Riverside, we're up year over year for number of properties going under contract. Some people starting to drive to where they can qualify. Now the price of gas is making that tougher because it's expensive to fill up your car. But seeing year over year more properties going under contract, that's despite a drop of about 12% in new listings. So it's actually more of a seller's market when you see a drop in new listings and you see an increase in pending sales, becomes more of a seller's market. So less choice this year for buyers shopping in May of 2026 versus those same buyers if they were shopping in May of 2025, although their mortgage interest rates are lower. So that is certainly something that helps there. Moving on to San Bernardino, we could see a similar thing, but up slightly year over year for number of properties going under contract, just like Riverside. Ventura, drop, always marching to its own drummer. We see a drop in number of properties going under contract, about 18%, almost 17.5% drop. And the thing that's been the same in every county is the number of new listings. That is down. San Diego, same thing, new listings down. But look at that increase in pending sales. So while Orange, LA were flat for properties going under contract, we can see that Ventura, the lone shark going down, Riverside, San Bernardino, San Diego, increase in pending sales, which will lead to an increase in closed sales. Switching over to multifamily data, anything 2 units or larger, one of the only places you're going to get these numbers, and all in the same chart. So we have two separate tabs, one for single family, one for multifamily. We've got those mortgage interest rates in there. The difference for mortgage interest rates when it comes to multifamily is that it affects the cash flow on the property and also the cap rate on some level. So the lower the mortgage interest rate, theoretically, the lower the cap rate can be and still have the asset make sense. So 1 to 4 units, a lot of the financing will be fixed rate financing for 15 or 30 years, still can be adjustable. Anything 5 plus is, for the most part, going to be adjustable rate financing. And that's where things get tough to pencil when mortgage interest rates go up. And especially that first adjustment on the adjustable rate mortgage could be set to be fixed for 5, 7, 10 years. But that first adjustment on a commercial loan, there's no cap. So it could be a big adjustment. In Orange County, things have been busy for multifamily. I've been tracking particularly South County, so San Clemente, Dana Point, stuff's flying off the shelves there. Costa Mesa, HB have been keeping busy, and we see that reflected. Now, the pending sales are up, not the way they were in 2024, but they're still up. Isn't that ironic? The highest mortgage interest rate, but the highest number of pending sales in Orange County. And moving on to LA. So LA, finally, Penal Code 396 just expired due to the LA fires. And what that was doing was capping rent increases at 10% maximum. Many properties are less, but the rent increases were capped at 10% maximum for both existing tenants and new renters. We've talked a ton about this. That finally expired. They let it expire at the end of May. Well, now that we have the Boyle Heights warehouse fire, another emergency has been declared, so it's back into effect. And that just makes it tougher for properties to pencil in LA. We're seeing a lot of landlords doing a 1031 exchange out of Los Angeles. I released a video showing the big drops in values. Flat for number of pending sales, drop in new listings, and I don't expect things, even in other counties. For example, Riverside, we may start to see more sales, although not reflected yet here in the data. We're not going to see the same thing in LA. That's a tight gap between the new listings and pending sales for Riverside. Moving into San Bernardino, up year over year for number of pending sales. Now, this data being 2 plus isn't broken down into more granular numbers. So we may find that maybe larger properties are meaning more units. Those may be more popular in certain areas than others. So at some point in time, we can add that. Put it in the comments if you want that granular data. Ventura, you just don't have that many properties, 2 units and larger. So your numbers move very quickly either way. Only 1 property closed in May in all of Ventura. Isn't that crazy? And finally, San Diego, down on pending sales. Yeah, another peak there around 2024. Not as high as 2021, but a peak in 2024. So people were making moves back then. Multifamily data, single family data. You gotta subscribe to the newsletter so you can play with these numbers too. Median home price madness, starting with single family homes, and then we're gonna show you condos and townhomes because there's a big difference. Also at SoCal. Right now, looking at the first 3 counties, Orange County, LA, Riverside, we actually have positive numbers for the month over month median home price. Not surprising. This is typically around the time of year we start to get to that peak. So you can see June of 2025 was a peak. April, May, June, peak, depending on the county, of 2024 is typical. So typically around the summertime is when we see that peak in median home price. Goes up month over month and in some cases year over year. So month over month, we are looking at an increase, pretty flat in Riverside, but still an increase. And for the most part, we're also seeing that the peaks are new this month versus years past. But in Orange County, it's definitely a new peak. Now, year over year, we have positive numbers for single family. Orange County is up 5.6% for single family. Almost $1.5 million is the median home price in OC. LA up about 3%, Riverside up about 1.2% for single family. Moving into the condos and townhomes, and we notice immediately there's some differences here. Number one, month over month down for condos and townhomes. In all 3 of these counties, and in all 3 of these counties, it appears that there have been previous peaks in value. So we are lower in the May median home price than we were in other months in years past. So not the same as we saw with single family. And then year over year, we're looking at OC down 0.2%, LA down 2.2%, Riverside up 0.4%. So negative or small changes positive in values for condos and townhomes for these three. Let's check our next three. Single family homes, what do we see? Another trend bucker here, and that's in San Diego. The green line down month over month. It's supposed to be going the other way. We're up in Ventura, San Bernardino, pretty flat. Well, if you're down month over month in San Diego, you had a peak in a previous month. Looks like a new peak in Ventura, pretty flat in San Bernardino. And then year over year, we're up about 0.2% in San Bernardino. Ventura is up about 3%. San Diego for single family is down 0.2%. And finally, condos and townhomes for those three respective counties were up or flat for the month over month values. Definitely not at peaks. We have prior year peaks in values for the condos and townhomes. Year over year, some surprising numbers here. San Bernardino down about 3%. Ventura, big drop. So while we were positive for single family year over year, we're down 7.7% for condos and townhomes. And San Diego down 0.3%. So saw a drop in San Diego for single family and condo and townhome values across the board for median home price. Got a lot to track here. Let's see what happens in June for these counties. Okay, quick one before we keep going. All these charts are telling you what the market is doing, but what they don't tell you is what you should do with the properties you own. If that's a question you're chewing on right now, send me your property addresses. We'll analyze them and tell you straight. No pressure, no obligation. You love them, I love them, we all love them. It's Altos Research Reports. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't yet so you can get this data sent directly to you. This time we're looking at the Market Action Index. What is that? Well, the Market Action Index is a ratio between the number of listings and the number of properties going under contract. With this ratio, also known as an absorption rate, we're able to determine whether it's a buyer's or seller's market. Under this metric, anything 30 or less is a buyer's market. Above 30 is a seller's market. Right now at the national level, we see a slight seller's advantage. Down here, we're able to go back and see what things look like in years past. April, we had a big upswing, more of a seller's market. 67.69 was the ratio then. And why was it so high then? Well, mortgage interest rates were going through the roof because of the war with Ukraine, and people were jumping in. They wanted to buy, so it became more of a seller's market when there were more buyers out there shopping. Since then, rates have gone up, and we've seen the seller's market diminish. And right now, at the national level, it is about the same where it was last year. We can also look at the respective quartiles, break the market down into 4 median home price quartiles and see how those properties are moving and the days on market. So this is the national level. Moving on into the state of California, we can see slight seller's advantage, higher than where we were at the national level, about the same, a little tiny bit more of a seller's market this time of the year versus last year, but still not a major seller's market. And we can see the quartiles again. What's important to look at is new versus absorbed. So if we see the absorbed inventory numbers higher than the new numbers, that means inventory is diminishing. And if it's the other way around, which we have seen, where there's more new inventory versus absorbed, that means it's starting to stick. This will affect days on market, and we can see days on market dropping as more properties are absorbed. So let's keep that trend in mind as we go through the data. Moving deeper into the data, now we're at Orange County. Of course, if you subscribe to these, you can go to the city or zip code level. This is the highest seller's market, 46, considered a strong seller's market. This is the highest we've seen so far and maybe the highest for SoCal. Let's see what we can find. And same trend, slightly more of a seller's market year over year. How about new versus absorbed? Equal to or greater than at every quartile. Look at days on market because it's going to be interesting to compare. At the bottom here, we're seeing stuff gone in 4 weeks or less. At the top, taking 10 weeks. And then also look at where those numbers are. So median home price 5.75 is the upper quartile. That's the median number for the top of the market. So there's obviously properties that are much more expensive. LA. We are at a slight seller's advantage there, not as high as Orange County, about the same year over year. New versus absorbed, equal to or greater than at every level. Taking longer for properties to sell in LA in general. Riverside, slight seller's advantage. Look at that peak. So it started to become more of a seller's market earlier in the year, and then it went the other way, and it is now slightly less of a seller's market. Still more of a seller's market than this time last year, but not by much. And new versus absorbed, another example where we're seeing more being absorbed versus new. But look at those days on market. So it's taken at that top of the quartile, which is about 1.5 for that median quartile price. It's taken 84 days. 70 at the bottom. Interesting to see when the bottom of the market, which we're seeing here, and we may see in some other counties, where the bottom quartile is taking the longest to sell. San Bernardino, slight seller's advantage, similar to Riverside, where we saw it turn to become more of a seller's market. It has since dropped. More of a seller's market this time of year than last year. New versus absorbed, equal to or greater than. And at the bottom of the market, we've got quite a few more being absorbed than new, but still, actually, that's where it takes the longest to sell, is on the bottom of the market. And Ventura, actually, slight seller's advantage, 43, about the same year over year for seller's market, new versus absorbed. And see where the numbers are smaller, fewer sales in Ventura, fewer properties in Ventura. San Diego, 45. So Orange County wins for Southern California as far as the strength of the seller market. It was 46. 45 is close. It was interesting to see, and you can see it in the data here, where it was 100. San Diego was 100 in their metric of a seller's market. Now slightly better year over year than where we were. New versus absorbed, close at the top. And flipped here, you could see it. This second quartile, we have fewer being absorbed than new. Days on market, it's taken about 5 weeks for properties to sell in general in San Diego, unless you're at the top of the market. Wanted to squeak in a surprise one. Which market is this? This is San Francisco, the home of AI moolah. And we can see a massive, strong seller's market. It's at 70. So go back here, it dropped. But unlike the other counties, it actually went back up. And what is that? Well, that's AI money. So it's actually more of a seller's market today than it's been, at least since the data we're seeing here. And new versus absorbed, more being absorbed. Not as many sales there for single family homes. Look at that. In the third quartile there, 7 days. Second quartile, 10 days. So the middle of the market, those folks out there looking for properties, gone in a week. Interesting to see how things compare across California. Subscribe so you got this data. So is 2026 a loser year? Are we going to claw it all back? My honest read, the back half of the year is about to tell the story. As we showed you, new listings are down in every county. Rates aren't cooperating, but these markets could correct quickly if we see some positive signs in the next few weeks. Watch the new versus absorbed numbers that we show you. That's the leading indicator. Now, if you caught that LA story earlier, where I was talking about values dropping and landlords exchanging out, I broke that whole thing down right here. Go watch that one next. I'll see you over there.